I can't believe I'm asking this, but is the MAGA coalition getting restless, a little antsy? I feel like we're starting to see some cracks emerge. Some normally reliable pro-Trump voices are starting to ask some tough questions of the administration, starting to wonder when the president's going to actually deliver on some of his lofty promises. You got Fox business analysts fuming about the economy, Steve Bannon declaring the deep state is winning, and various social media influencers on the right asking, where the heck are the Epstein files? Is the whole political landscape about to change? I'm Jesse Weber, and you're in the Spin Room.
Your primary job, which is to take down the deep state. People, we are burning daylight. These people are playing smash mouth. They're playing hardball, and the deep state is winning right now.
No, that's not Steve Bannon saying that last year during Biden's presidency or during Obama's presidency. He is saying that right now as Donald Trump sits in the White House. Trump is president and the deep state is winning? Look, there's no doubt most, if not all, of Donald Trump's base is still on board with him 3 months into his presidency. But, I mean, how can you deny that there is a sense of discontent that's been popping up along various MAGA fronts? And here's the thing, MAGA means a lot of things to a lot of different people, right? MAGA could mean, hey, I just want Trump and the administration to succeed, broadly speaking. There are others who want a more radical transformation of everything from government to everyday life. But all in all, there is an expectation for Trump to do big things, positive things. And you gotta wonder, so far, maybe his supporters feel they're not getting what they signed up for. Steve Bannon, for instance, is laser focused on taking down what he believes is the deep state, right? Those forces from within, the enemies of the people in government. And honestly, if you really believe that, would it now be the best time to accomplish this, right? I mean, you got FBI Director Kash Patel, a regular Bannon show contributor, even guest hosted his program on occasion. And yet, for all of Patel's talk about going after government gangsters, Bannon believes the deep state is alive and well.
And I want to give a warning. If the guys around Hegseth, if there's indictments or investigations going on, and there's no indictments, there's no release of the Epstein files, and there's no investigations of Brennan and the 51, and you're not spending your time on that, but somehow gets diverted over this, it is going to be a firestorm from the MAGA base. I think people are fed up with it.
Putting aside, of course, there might be other things more pertinent going on, like, running the country, that might take priority. But you know what? Last December, Mediaite, they put out this annual list of the most influential people in media, and the site ranked Steve Bannon quite highly for this exact reason. They called Bannon one of the few people with the ability and willingness to take Trump on for not being conservative enough. So when he warns about an impending MAGA firestorm, that's a warning President Trump probably shouldn't ignore. And you heard Bannon mention the Jeffrey Epstein files there, right? That has been quite a big point of contention for many on the right because they want the files, because they were promised it. They were promised the files. Kash Patel, just a few months before becoming FBI director, was out there promising the files on day one.
Has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
He named it. They got it. They got it.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
By the way, Black Book. Are we expecting that Jeffrey Epstein has this little black book with every alleged co-conspirator and sex trafficker part of it? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, the things that have been released so far is he had a large contact list, but just because somebody knew him doesn't necessarily mean that they're a part of all of this or whatever his alleged scheme might have been.
That's why you don't have a Black Book. Or the manifesto.
But the Black Book, it's not just sitting, I mean, that's Hoover power times 10.
And to me, that's a thing I think President Trump should run on. On day one, roll out the Black Book.
Well, we're past day 90 now, and still no Black Book, still no client list, still no additional files, because everything that's been released so far is things we already kind of saw. Now, many on the right, they are starting to wonder why. On Tuesday, in the Oval Office, Trump seemed to be kind of caught off guard by an Epstein files question from Reagan Reese, who, by the way, is not from MSNBC. No, she's a correspondent for the right-wing outlet, The Daily Caller.
So when can we expect the Epstein documents to be released? The rest of them?
Which documents?
The Epstein files?
I don't know. speak to the Attorney General about that. I really don't know. I know that we've done the RFK, the Kennedy, Martin Luther King is out there very shortly, so we'll find out. But we've really announced we're doing them in full transparency. You know, when we did JFK, people were saying, "Oh, maybe it wasn't all; it was all," and people actually went up to the office and they looked at some things that were, you know, not really easily available, and they were amazed that we gave it all. And I don't know if it solved any problems for people. People still have questions one way or the other.
That's true.
But that I'm not. But 100% of all of these documents are being delivered. Yep.
Oh, they better be. They better be, because there's a lot of talk right now. Is the delay have something to do with President Trump? That's just an allegation. Have no way of knowing that whatsoever. It's a point of conversation. The longer this gets delayed, and if anything looks like it's redacted or anything looks like it's been kept from the American people, that is going to be the first thing that everybody says. And that also, by the way, is a go-to evasion tactic for Donald Trump. Mention anything else. Mention the JFK files, mention the MLK files, wherever they are, the Epstein files get brought up, just mention something else. He did the same thing earlier this year in an interview with syndicated journalist Cheryl Atkinson.
Is that process still on track? I think that's one of the most often questions I've been asked the last couple of days, to release these records on Epstein, MLK, and JFK.
Well, Pam Bondi's done a phenomenal job in every respect. And there could have been some holdback. I haven't heard too much about it, but they could. But the bottom line is the records are getting out. The Kennedy records are getting out. Those are the ones I really wanted to see the most, with the Kennedys. And
Epstein? No, let's talk about Kennedy. Check out this shiny object over here. We don't really want to talk about the Epstein files right now. You want the JFK files. That's what you really want. That's what we need to focus on. You got them, right? Aren't you satisfied? No, look, this MAGA base, the MAGA base, they're not satisfied with this. No. And yes, people wanted to see what the government had on Kennedy, sure. But there is this urgency for the Epstein files. Why? Well, first of all, it's closer in time and place than Kennedy, but because people believe that there are still alleged sex traffickers out there who are connected to the disgraced financier, people who have not been brought to justice. And so now you actually have right-wing activist groups suing the Trump Justice Department to try and access the documents. Tom Fitton, the head of the conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch, announced their FOIA lawsuit and called out the Trump administration for stonewalling on the Epstein files.
So Judicial Watch just sued for the Epstein files. We want.
That's not how I thought that video was going to start. Let me just tell you that. Got to show the traps before I do anything else.
We want the client lists. We want the documents.
Where is he, by the way?
Documents the Justice Department and the FBI have about this scandal. We've been getting stonewalling, so despite the release of some records, it looks like other records haven't been released yet. Indeed, they haven't responded to our basic FOIA requests for this information. That's why we're in federal court now. The best way to understand what records are available, which records are being held secret, and where did they look for the records is to be in court. And that's where Judicial Watch is, and that's what we specialize in doing. Getting secrets from the government they don't want you to know about. And people want to know about the Epstein scandal, and we aim to get to the bottom of it.
First of all, I got to know what this guy's weightlifting regimen looks like. My gosh, it looks like he can bench press a car. And in every video, he makes a point to show off his physique. And it's like, Judicial, watch these pecs. I'm not proud of that joke. I'm not, but I made it anyway, so just give me the opportunity to say it. But Fitton's group has plenty of muscle in court too. Sorry, that's going to be the last one. And they've gotten records for years from unwilling government agencies. But Judicial Watch normally watches Democrats. It's rare to see this. Much more rare to see them challenge a Republican administration like this, Donald Trump's administration. But it just speaks to the idea that many on the right are running out of patience on the Epstein files. And many conservative financial analysts, they are also running out of patience when it comes to the economy. With the market down more than 10% since President Trump took office, and the president's heavily scrutinized tariff plan and policy not seeming to bear much fruit as of yet, the normally sympathetic talking heads on Fox News and Fox Business, they have been quick to criticize the president's actions. Fox Business host Charles Payne called out the White House this week for overhyping the progress that they've made on trade talks without having actually announced any deals.
It's not helping because I think...
By the way, I've met Charles Payne before, super nice guy. I gotta say, I love the way he dresses. I host a show called Always in Fashion. I could do a whole show. That's actually a good one. I should do a show on how anchors dress. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I'm going to do that one.
I think what you need here is, if you're going to start to really have these conversations, give us some realistic markers. Over the weekend, Apollo published a piece that said the average trade deal takes 18 months to put together and 45 months to implement. Obviously, no one wants or hopes that this is going to be the case this time around. But, you know, if you come up every other day, yeah, we just had a great call with so-and-so and these guys, and it starts to take away credibility. It starts to smack of desperation, and we just don't necessarily need it.
Oof, smacks of desperation? That is certainly not how the man who wrote The Art of the Deal ever wants to be seen in the business world. And look, I'm no economist or financial expert, but are we shifting away from the conversation of this is just a negotiating tactic, just give it some time for it all to work? Are Trump supporters losing patience? Can they not even articulate a justification for what is happening or about to happen? And it doesn't end there, because there's now some hand-wringing from the right about Doge and Elon Musk about the cost-cutting agency not going far enough. Fox Business host Dagan McDowell took a pointed shot at the Doge chief for coming up way short of his stated original goal of $2 trillion in cuts.
The first 6 months of this fiscal year, we ran a $1.3 trillion deficit. So if you run that out just based on the first 6 months, we could have a $2.6 trillion deficit this year. It's absurd.
Well,
don't tell me you can't cut. Don't tell me you can't cut.
Well, Doge came up about $850 billion short based on that last cabinet meeting.
The $150 billion that Doge has found in cuts using Elon Musk math it is $9 billion short of our budget deficit last month. Lydia, that's how out of control our finances are, and borrowing.
Elon Musk math, that one stings. Look, it's easy to criticize, though, right? What exactly should be cut? First, he was cutting too much, too fast. Now he's not cutting enough. He's not cutting too little, not fast enough. He can't win. He can't win. And by the way, Elon Musk math hasn't been working out too well for Tesla either, because lately, this week, the company reported that profits plummeted by a whopping 71% in the first quarter of 2025, perhaps why he rushed to reassure the company's shareholders that he's ditching Doge and coming back full-time next month. Brit Hume, okay, another reliably pro-Trump voice on Fox, also going after Trump on the economy and his threats to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
Well, there isn't much that's happening right now, Brett, that's going to give investors a peaceful, easy feeling about the state of the economy and therefore the state of the markets, which have been turbulent but mostly down now since the announcement of the tariffs, a month ago. And now the president is calling for the departure of Fed Chairman Powell, who, you know, whatever you think of him and whether you think interest rates should be lower, as the president certainly does, or whether you don't, that's another element of instability in the current financial outlook. And instability is something that markets do not like, and economies really don't either.
Instability. Instability. Talk about a word that maybe is the most appropriate for how a lot of people are feeling right now. But that is a tough analysis from one of Fox's senior-most commentators. And he didn't stop there. No, he's been equally unsparing on Trump's handling of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And more specifically, Brit Hume called out the president for taking it easy on Vladimir Putin.
You know, he keeps pounding Zelensky and saying it's harder to deal with him than it is with Putin. Putin, so far as I can tell, hasn't agreed to much of anything, except, yes, he'd love to annex Crimea, which is part of the proposal that's before him now. That's no concession. That's just all that is taking a gain. Zelensky resists that because Crimea, up until the Russia invaded it 10 years or so ago, was part of Ukraine. So I'm not exactly sure what the president is talking about when he says that Zelensky has been more difficult to deal with than Putin.
Who's it easier to go against, right? Who's it easier to criticize? Look, you got to wonder if maybe that kind of criticism, though, is moving Trump to get a little bit tougher on Vladimir Putin. Why? The president scolded the Russian leader Thursday on Truth Social following Russia's attack on Kyiv, writing, quote, "I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv, not necessary and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Vladimir, stop. Vladimir, stop." Look, it's not exactly the tongue lashing that Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky got when he visited the White House, but it's definitely a notable escalation in his rhetoric towards the Russian leader. But this is yet another front in which the president has arguably not delivered on what he promised. You remember before he took office, he repeatedly vowed to solve the conflict in very short order.
I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours.
One day, 24 hours. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, where's the war? It's gone.
I say that, and I would do that. That's easy compared to some of the things. I'd get that done in 24 hours. I know them both.
I give him credit. I give him credit for trying to want to end this. That's something he ran on. He doesn't want this to continue. I get it. I respect him for it. But sure, 24 hours. That was obviously hyperbole. Well, some people, maybe not. They really believe that he could get it done that quickly. But really, no one really expected him to actually hammer out a peace deal in a single day. But it's more the lack of progress that's starting to bother key voices on the right. It's not that they expected it to be solved on day one. It's that it doesn't seem like it's any closer to being solved than it was on day one. Remember, the idea was if he comes into office, that power dynamic's going to shift. The fear is going to shift. There's going to be an inclination to end this with Donald Trump in the White House. Doesn't seem like it happened. And these are the issues on which the president is facing pressure. Not the case, by the way, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a serious case. The guy who was deported to an El Salvadorian prison. Democratic political leaders, pundits on the left, they have been losing their minds over the Garcia case, arguing that Garcia did not receive the proper due process before being shipped off to an overseas prison. You want to have that conversation? Legal debate? Definitely can, okay? I think there's a legitimate argument there. But that case is not going to lose Donald Trump very much support, if any. It's Epstein, it's the economy, it's the deep state, and all the other issues that MAGA voters are most concerned about. That is how Trump loses support. It's hard for Trump to win new supporters, okay? But what he can't afford, what his party can't afford, is to lose support. Now, to be fair, despite a recent drop in his approval ratings, he's certainly not there yet. Most of the base has given him time to deliver on his pledge to make America great again. But there's certain issues on which he's going to have to at least make good, and soon. Thanks for checking us out here on The Spin Room, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.